Greetings. The International College of Behavioral Counseling welcomes you to Life-Defining Axioms. Each axiom contains essential wisdom for life, for living. This axiom is entitled, Compromise and surrender are not the same thing. They're not synonymous one with the other. We tend to think they are, but they're not. And sometimes the lack of compromise leads us to a great deal of confusion. I call it organized confusion. The definition of compromise is it's an agreement reached by each side conceding some points in our ideas and our methods of work and living to make it easier for the other couple or the other party. That's compromise. Compromise is a bad word in our understanding because it implies abandonment of values and morals and beliefs, and often it does. Very often, like a young man who is born in a godly home and comes from a church setting, and he goes to university and comes out after 4 years a total agnostic at best and an atheist at worst. Well, what has happened? Has he compromised? No, he hasn't compromised. What has happened there is he's been brainwashed because institutions of learning today are more indoctrinational centers and brainwashing places than they are universities. Harvard, Yale, Princeton, all these schools were based upon Christian Bible schools is how they started. And they were for higher learning. And today you can't even mention God in their class because you'll be excommunicated. No, you'll be kicked right out. You'll be ostracized. That's brainwashing. But that's not compromise. One doesn't have to abandon their opinion or change their mindset or value systems in order to get along with someone else. We can even agree to disagree without being disagreeable. That's cooperation. That's compromise. No need to abandon your values, your worldview, your Christian principles, your way of living. This was dramatically demonstrated to us after World War II. Europe was completely decimated by Nazi bombs and by Allied bombs. My wife and I were in Poland 50 years after the war, and there were still buildings that were still trashed out, bombed out. They weren't put back together again. 50 years. And we experienced World War II DPs. Now, what are DPs? Well, DP is a discouraging word meaning displaced persons. These people were displaced from their homes. Their homes were bombed out. And Canada, United States, Brazil, Argentina, all countries like this opened up their borders and welcomed these DPs, displaced people. Peoples of the world were there, and they came in with their different languages. We didn't understand them. We couldn't. We had to teach them English. We didn't understand their customs. They were strange to us. We didn't understand their foreign way of living. They were total foreigners to us. Furthermore, they stank. I couldn't turn my nose off. Yes, they stank. Why? Because many of them had a culture that caused them to bathe regularly once a month. So they were altogether different, and we had to compromise. We put away our differences and we accepted them as human beings. We did that for our own survival because the whole world was in a mess. And we became friends. And because we became friends, we began to learn from one another. And in the end, we became better people for having accepted them. Some of them were lawyers, some of them were doctors, some of them were teachers, others were artists, some were mathematicians, others were musicians. We gained a lot from being exposed to them through our compromise. Lori Latimer makes this statement. She said, accept our mistakes, accept our differences, and let us cooperate or let us compromise. I prefer the word let us cooperate than let us compromise. Let us cooperate because cooperation is a kind of a compromise. And let us work together in building a nation. There's a portion of scripture in Romans chapter 12, verses 7 through 17. Wherefore receive one another, as Christ received us also by God's glory. Rejoice with them that rejoice. Weep with them that weep. Be of the same mind one towards the other. Be condescend to men of low estate. Recompense no evil for evil. In other words, let's cooperate. Let's compromise. And in so doing, you will be better yourself as well. Well, that is good psychology, and that's good theology, and it's essential wisdom for living. I'm Wilf Kent. Visit our website, icbconline.org. Until next week, then, farewell and keep well.